Okay, we are go. Brilliant. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are excited. We've just been chatting, me and the speakers. It's a matter that's very, very close to my heart, talking about growing food in schools. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about the Go Flourish project and hear a little more expertise from Briege about getting that food that you're growing in your school into the kitchens for the kids. We are going to be here for about an hour and a half. As I say, we've got two wonderful speakers, and we're going to put plenty of time in for some question and answers, because I know that within these kind of 60 people that we've got here, there's a lot of expertise as well. So I'm hoping that we can really make some good connections. I've put our contact details and some links into the chat, so I hope that you can make use of that and have a look at them. I am just looking through my notes, sorry. Yes, before I go on to introduce the Highland Good Food Partnership, which some of you may know and some of you may not, I'll just say that this topic of growing food in schools is an enormous one, and it's a really slow going machine trying to kind of shift the education system to make room for this kind of magic. So yeah, it'll be great to hear what the Go Flourish project are doing. I'd love to hear more of anything that you guys are involved in as well. It's always wonderful to hear of other projects going on in schools. And I hope that it will be a very useful hour and a half for you. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Ellie Forster, and I work for the Highland Good Food Partnership. I'm a project officer, and we are a charity that's been going since 2021 that aims to bring people together from all aspects of the food system to drive change towards a sustainable food system in the Highlands. We collaborate with individuals and organisations and businesses, and we also work at various scales, like from grassroots right up to national networks. We work hard to campaign on important issues. We amplify sustainable practice, we empower communities, and we really try to champion local producers. And I'm just going to put a bit of a plug in there that membership of the partnership is free, and it means that you can stay updated about all the things that we're up to. So that link is in the chat, and so please feel free to drop into that and get involved. Brilliant. So I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Laura Dorrant, and she'll be sharing some of the exciting work that her organisation Go Flourish have been working on, and shed a little light on the transformative vision they have for the future. Laura is the very first Go Flourish liaison teacher and works at North Keswick Primary School. She's a qualified teacher and has been working with Go Flourish for the past 18 months, working behind the scenes to get the charity set up and the first garden in at North Keswick, which leads to today, where she now enables the teachers to take their classes outside for gardening and outdoor learning on a weekly basis. Laura has been part of our conversations at the Highland Good Food Partnership over the years as we've evolved, and I'm really delighted to have the chance to work with her today in getting the word out about the amazing work Go Flourish is doing. So Laura, I hope you can unmute and join us.
Yes, thank you, Ellie. Thank you so much for the introduction. And thank you for hosting the event today. I think, you know, it's an ongoing conversation. It certainly has been going on for as long as I've been part of the Highland Good Food Partnership. And so it's wonderful to come together in this way. And I really feel like there's a lot of people doing a lot of good work. And obviously, Go Flourish, we want to be a part of that change to secure a local food system in the Highlands, first of all. But our vision at Go Flourish is that's a part of our vision. And as Ellie said, I'm the first liaison teacher for Go Flourish, working in the first Go Flourish Garden at North Keswick Primary. And it's really why I went into teaching. I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do as a teacher. When I was working with my permaculture teacher in Australia about 10 years ago, we had these most incredible food forests. They were established 10 years prior to that. And just being outside with the children, it just being so normal for the children to do everything in the garden and, you know, harvest food. And it was that moment that I thought, yeah, this is what I want to do. So here we are 10 years later, and we've set up a charity that started in the Highlands, but we have a big vision. We have a national vision. But obviously you need to start at the beginning. So if I give you a brief introduction of Go Flourish, actually started about 9 years ago in 2016. So we're based on the Black Isle in Munlochy, because the story of Go Flourish starts at the Black Isle Brewery, funnily enough, where there is a beautiful market garden. And the project founder, Go Flourish project founder, JJ Gladwin, started hosting small groups of school children on the farm there. So the children would come from the primary school in Inverness or a local Black Isle secondary school, small groups, and it is very much a therapeutic horticultural program. So children that really struggled for one reason or another in the traditional school setting, came out to the farm. They would start their day by feeding animals, and then to have tea together, tea break with, you know, homemade cakes and things. And then they'd spend another hour or an hour and a half gardening in the market garden there. And the benefits are just so obvious and so profound. And through JJ's conversations with the teachers and through her experience with the children, she realized that this was something that was the need for this was much greater. So her vision has been for the last 10 years to get really exceptionally high quality gardens into schools, because that's where most children spend most of their time. And so the garden at the brewery is designed around 3 principles. And these are the 3 principles that go into the Go Flourish Garden at North Keswick and will determine future Go Flourish Gardens as well. And those 3 principles are biodiversity, which we all know is very, very important. Productivity, so we want to grow to secure our local food system. And beauty, because we really need to reconnect children to nature. And one of the best ways to do that is to inspire wonder and awe. You know, we all need that. We need to look around and just love where we are. And so the gardens are productive places. They're rich in food and habitat, but not just us, but a range of other life creatures, and also really beautiful spaces to be in. And so these are the principles that have gone into creating the first Go Flourish garden. And so I started, as Ellie said, I started 18 months ago when there wasn't a garden, when there was literally just a vision. JJ had the project ready to go but needed a teacher, and I just sort of appeared at the right time. And we've had this same shared vision. And so we set up the charity and we started working with the council, and we've worked with the council very closely to obviously create a garden on council land at North Keswick Primary. So that takes us to our first garden, which is, there it is, in North Keswick. So on the left, you can see the land as was before the Go Flourish garden was created. North Keswick, for those, I don't know if anyone knows North Keswick, but North Keswick Primary is blessed with a large space, a large school grounds. And so there are established trees, and you can see the hut there, that the outdoor classroom, that was already there. So it was actually quite a straightforward creation to start with. You know, we needed to start somewhere. You need it to be quite straightforward. And then you can see there's myself and the head teacher, blessed to be working with Miriam Mackay. She's a really professional and forward-thinking head teacher, and she was on board from the very beginning. She thought this was great. And there's JJ Gladwin, the project founder. She's the garden designer. And so we're standing on the site prior to work beginning, and that's us looking at the plan, which you can actually see in the top right there. And so the idea around the garden was a space that the children would love to be in. So there's elements of play, there's very traditional garden elements. As you can see, we have quite a large polytunnel there, and we built that wall as a really clear boundary between the playing fields and the garden. It's a dry stone style dike, so obviously we had to make sure that it was well fixed in so that we are up with health and safety. There's also, if you look to the left of the tunnel, you can see a little sort of metal dome, and that's actually a pond. So we got a dry stone dike and some wetland in a school, which we're really pleased about, because as we all know, wetlands are a really important part of any ecosystem. So we followed very traditional garden design principles, and we created this, what we think is a really beautiful space. I'm just going to move this there. So on the bottom right, you can actually see the outdoor growing space. So you can see that the no-dig beds, the sort of tiger stripes. So there are 6 no-dig beds outside. And then obviously we have got a huge space to grow in the tunnel as well. And I've already had conversations with the cook at North Keswick, who I believe has joined us this evening, which is fantastic. And we're really interested in learning how we can use the produce from the garden in the kitchen at school. I mean, it's just obvious to bring those things together. So really looking forward to hearing from Briege on that. And my job as a liaison teacher, you know, I'm there almost full time. I'm there 3 full days and 2 half days. And my job is it's not to have gardening as an add-on or something extra or sort of tokenistic on the side. It's really to use this space to teach the curriculum. So what my job is to make that link between the garden and the teachers. I'm a teacher myself. I know how much pressure teachers are under. I know paperwork, the bureaucracy, and just the day-to-day management in the classroom. And so my job is to enable teachers to take more of their learning outside, is to give them the confidence to get outside. I'm extra capacity. You know, we all know it's quite difficult sometimes to get classes outside, and also to help to support the existing teaching and learning with the garden space. So gardening, horticulture, outdoor learning. And so it's an ongoing conversation. This is our first year in the school. This is our pilot year. And we really are working out, you know, how does this work? What do we actually do? How do you support the curriculum with gardening? So that's the question that we're staying curious about, and it's going really well so far. So Go Flourish, we have our first school garden. We have our first Go Flourish teacher. And this is the first year of a 5-year scoping study. So we have this big vision. Every school has growing space. Every school has a garden with a teacher. You know, we think it's so important to reconnect children to nature so that they realize their part in nature. So they're not separate from it, but a part of it. The physical and mental health benefits are obvious, but unfortunately, we're not going to get very far with system change unless we have a really solid body of evidence. So this is our first year of a 5-year scoping study. And in order to get that evidence, one of the things that we have done is partnered with St Andrews University. We have a PhD student from the School of Psychology and Neuroscience who is doing her PhD on the impact of our approach. So she is in her first year of her study. She's already started collecting data from North Keswick. We also have the very generous involvement of Kirkhill Primary, which is just outside Bewley. That's our control school. And the PhD student is measuring the impact of our approach on the children's health and well-being. And so this scoping study, the next 4 or 5 years, will be focusing on 2 primary schools and 1 secondary school. And we really want to see the impact. But as well as that, as well as proving, ridiculously we have to prove it, but as well as proving the benefits of using gardening to teach curriculum subjects, we also want to provide the government with the mechanism. So in Scotland, we have this fantastic policy, learning for sustainability, but getting it down to the ground, getting it operational, you know, as part of daily life for school. All the teachers on this call, I'm sure, know that it's quite hard. There are barriers to that. So we want to provide the mechanism. We want to provide one framework that says, okay, this is how it can work. This is one way in which it can work. So that's really our focus for now, is to have this evidence-based, you know, why this is necessary, look at the effects, look at the benefits, and of course, because we're talking government, it's, you know, how much it actually costs in reality. So we've just started on that journey. It's a journey of discovery, that's for sure, but we are confident that we are going to have a really rich evidence base in 4 years' time. And actually, one of the ways that we are collecting evidence is through schools and communities. It's something we're just venturing into, and we have a survey, and we would love it if you could fill it out at the end of this event, just to give us some feedback about growing projects that you're already involved in, you know, the benefits that you have observed. All the qualitative data is really rich and really important. And also the barriers, you know, what barriers you face. So we'd love to hear from you and your experiences. So I think Ellie will ask at the end if you could fill that in. That would be superb. Okay, so let's move on. The question is, how do you support the curriculum with gardening? Okay, so we've started. I've been at the school since the start of this school year. And as I said, I've been working with the teachers, and we go out at the moment. Each class has one learning session outside as a whole class with their teacher and myself. And the feedback and the conversation around it is really positive. So I've got a few examples to share with you here. Some lovely pictures of the children outside. So these are 3 different curriculum areas. You've got science, you've got numeracy, you've got literacy. There's a P45 class watching their teacher do an experiment regarding density. So this whole term we've been looking at water with the P45s. We started in the garden looking at evaporation and condensation by very simply making hot chocolate from a Kelly kettle. And you know, it's that experiential learning that's so rich and so meaningful and just so much fun that the children, you can drop in the boiling point of water and what evaporation is and what condensation is, and they'll remember because they got hot chocolate that day. And then we progressed with experiments to see which fruits would sink and which would float. And then we spoke about buoyancy, and now we've been looking at density. So it's a whole sequential piece of science learning outside. And that's actually a picture taken from inside our polytunnel. We're very blessed to have a purpose-built bench there. So it fits very well for demonstration. In the middle, you can see some P1 children just practicing their numbers from 0 to 20. So I ripped up a cardboard box. I wrote big numbers from 0 to 20 on it. I shuffled them up, and then I got the children to sort them out. And the way it works with the early years, so nursery and P1, is I take small groups out, because we found that as a whole class, it doesn't work. They're just a bit too young yet. So I take small groups out on my own with from the P1 class. And so they sorted the numbers into order. And then we collected cones from the garden, because we're very blessed to have established trees. And we got the children to count out the correct number of cones in front of each number. And then we shifted the cones out of the way, and I gave them big chalk, and they got to practice their number formation. And that way I could just really observe the children, and I could then discuss with their class teacher afterwards who needed a bit more practice and who was missing certain elements of that number work. And then if we move on to the picture on the right, this is a wonderful piece of non-fiction writing. It's P67's big writing for this term, and the teacher decided to do it on the topic of the life cycle of the plant. So I provided the information. We went through the different stages of growing food. And then this, the photo shows the planning stage. So the class teacher took all the information back to class and they worked in small groups, collaborative learning. They did a bit of research, so they're investigating themselves. And then they came up with this, this illustrative display of the life cycle of growing, the growth cycle. So when I came back, you know, a couple of days later, I was blown away to see it up in the children's own language. I know that they'd then been presenting to each other. And it's just really wonderful, rich way of teaching literacy and non-fiction writing. It was a big piece of writing. And I believe that they finished it now, and I'm going to see it tomorrow. So that was really, really exciting. And of course, through that, what we're doing is we're approaching the new growing season. And so when we start actually propagating next month, then when I talk about propagation, that class already know what I'm talking about. When we're looking for signs of germination, that class already know what we're talking about. So we will be doing what we've been learning, which I think we can all agree is a fantastic way to learn. So if we move on, and of course, you know, one of the key curriculum areas is health and well-being, which just, I think you don't even have to really try. You take the children outside, especially on a day like that day when the sun's shining and everyone's dressed up nice and warm. And this is one of the older classes, the P56 class, and it works really, really well with the older children to divide the class into smaller groups. So have 5 or 6 different garden maintenance jobs, and then just set them to task. And myself and the class teacher just move around the site, check in, make sure everyone's working well together, make sure everyone knows what they're doing, make sure that everyone's safe using the tools. And the engagement is really incredible. And obviously they can make more noise, they can move around more freely. And so these pictures show a group hard at work, had been stripping the sellotape off cardboard and covering a grassy area because we want to extend that growing bed. And I'd also like to say that the cardboard, I'd put a call out to the school, you know, so parents had been bringing in cardboard. I think they still are. Miss Dorrant, do you need more cardboard? Which is always a yes in the garden. So it's really, you know, it's going through the school. We're teaching this renewable resources, the importance of sustainability. And then the children can go home and say, oh yeah, you know, those boxes that we took to school, oh, we've used them to do this, and can explain compost at home as well. So there's just loads of threads going out through the school community. You can see the joy if you look at the right, the picture on the right hand side. You can see the joy of the group who got to literally get into the compost bin, and were breaking up large pieces of cardboard. And then because we had discussed composting already, they came to me and said, but Miss Dorrant, the compost is very brown, we need more green waste. And so we had a discussion about how once the grass was growing, there's a huge playing field in North Keswick, we can get the grass clippings and put it in, and that would be our nitrogen source to balance out our carbon source. So it's this normalizing being outside, normalizing composting, normalizing growing, normalizing using natural resources, renewable resources, in order to create our own soil, in order to regenerate our soil, and therefore grow our own food. You know, I've been saying to the children a lot that what we do to the earth, we do to our food, and what we do to our food, we do to ourselves. And it's making those connections that's so important. And already the children are getting really excited. Can we plant things yet, Miss Dorrant? I'm like, no, just hold off. We've got to hold off, got a few more weeks yet. But we plan on propagating a lot more than we will be able to house, because having too many plants is a wonderful problem to have. And we just want to spread this around the community. And so that actually brings me nicely to the importance of community in the Go Flourish approach. I haven't really spoken about it yet, but the sustainability of the project itself, and also the longevity of the garden and future gardens, it depends on the community. We don't see this as separate. You know, the school is a community hub. It's one of the reasons why working with the head teacher at North Keswick is great, because she already had that vision of bringing the community back together, especially after COVID. And, you know, this garden is only going to work if the whole community is involved. I think those on this call who have existing growing projects, or, you know, we know that a lot of school garden projects fall down in the summer because just nobody's there. So we actually have negotiated a license to occupy with the council. It was modelled on the Eden Bain primary license to occupy, that Eden Bain on Skye. And it means that out of school hours, we are the legal tenants effectively. So we have tenants' rights to go onto school land in the evenings, weekends, and during the holidays, which means that we can maintain the garden and we can actually use the produce that we grow. So community involvement is absolutely key. You know, we will only succeed if we regenerate our communities at the same time as regenerate our health, the health of our land, the health of our soil, our food system. It just all weaves together. So it's a very important part of the Go Flourish approach is this community aspect. And as I said, we've had lots of donations from the parents at North Keswick. So we put a call out for spare wellies, we put a call out for warm clothes, put a call out for cardboard. I got a message yesterday, someone saying they had spare wood chip, would we like it for the garden? So it's starting to ripple out, which is absolutely fantastic. And I think it's really important to say that, you know, this garden at North Keswick, I mean, we just had to get it in, we had to get it started, you know, so it was always going to be the most expensive garden, but and that in itself is just not sustainable, and we know that, and it also doesn't align with our ethos. So future Go Flourish gardens will be working with the community in a collaborative way right from the get-go. This was a special case. This is our pilot. We had to just get going, but we know the value of working with the community, and yeah, we will be finding out which skills are in the community, what resources are in the community, what ideas, you know, how the community would like to use their garden. So that's the future of Go Flourish Gardens. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing Breege talk about how we can actually use the produce at the school. I know that North Keswick have a community market once a month, so I'm seeing our harvests, you know, being turned into preserves and appearing at the markets as well. I just where this goes and how this garden is used is not up to me. It's up to the school, it's up to the families, and it's up to the wider community. And I'm just really, really excited about this. And yeah, if you could share your experiences with us and contribute to that body of evidence which we so need to get together, then hopefully we can all be a part of the system change that we know needs to happen right now. So yeah, I think that's it. Thanks, Ellie.
Oh, Laura, thank you. That's amazing. That's really...
Sorry, I just meant to say, so we are putting a shout out for volunteers in the garden. So we would love to have more hands in the garden during school time. If anyone would like to come and work with myself and the teachers and just be another pair of hands in the garden with the kids, or if you'd like to come and work in the garden at weekends, for example, please get in touch with our project coordinator, whose email is there, lynn@goflourishcharity.org. And also you can keep an eye on us on our website, which we will be updating very, very soon. It will be going live. The revised version will be going live. And on that revised version, there'll be a space for us to populate with more lesson ideas as well. So that's just in development at the moment. So and we've got a lovely UHI student teacher coming on board who's going to help us with that. So I'm really excited. Looking forward to meeting her as well. Okay, thank you.
Laura, thank you so much. That was a great presentation. Wonderful. Well, I hope all of you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. It's pretty inspiring to see all the work you've already done, and to think that you've got more years to work your magic. That's fabulous. There haven't been a lot of questions. I don't know whether you just answered all the questions, Laura, or if or if people are holding back. But please feel free to put questions in. There was a lovely comment from another Laura, who is a chef, talking about the importance of kind of getting outdoors. Oh, and I've just got this question, Laura. Do you want to pose your question to the other Laura? If that makes sense, feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just have to apologise for background noise because my 3-year-old is helping himself to dessert.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so currently with my gardening and the way that I use food within my business and teaching children, I know that some years, some crops don't grow as well as others, or things go to plan either politically or economically or weather-wise, and the environment that might affect how things turn out. So if you've got a set curriculum plan, how does that look if you have an unexpected item, crop up? Are you more flexible because of that? Do you have a contingency? I'm just really curious, because obviously we know things don't always go to plan, and nature has its own way. So yeah, I'd love to know about that, how you deliver the curriculum.
That's a great question. Because I started at the school in August at the start of this academic year, and because the garden had just gone in, there wasn't really a lot to do in terms of straight horticulture and in terms of straight gardening. And so we were doing some weeding, but we were using plants more as to learn about the plants. So we didn't grow any produce. This is our first growing season that we're about to start. So I'll be able to answer that question a bit more fully next year. But yes, there is more flexibility because it's under the umbrella of outdoor learning. So at the beginning of each term, I go to the class teachers and I say, what do you want to focus on this term? And one teacher will say, I want to focus on numeracy. I'd like to learn how to teach numeracy outside. And so we won't necessarily be doing hands-on gardening with that class. We'll be using the outdoor space as an area in which to teach numeracy, and we'll be using resources that we take out from the classroom and also that we can find in the garden. So to give you an example, tomorrow we are going to look at greater than, less than, equal to, and not equal to. So we're going to collect sticks and we're going to physically make the signs with the children. And again, my big chalk's going to come out, and definitely some cardboard numbers. And then we'll also use whiteboards, which will bring out, the little whiteboards, the sort of show me whiteboards. So I don't have the pressure of having to grow a certain amount of produce. And we don't have the pressure of having to grow a particular type of produce either. It's really growing to teach the children how to grow. And I'm sure as the years go on and the community are more involved, there will be more focused ideas on how the garden is to be used. That's not up to me. That's not up to us at Go Flourish. That's up to the owners of the garden, which is North Keswick. So as the years go on, I'm sure that garden will be taken in different directions depending on who's involved. But for now, there is great flexibility. We can use the space however we want. It's all about me supporting the teachers to teach the curriculum, and as much gardening as we can get in there, then the better. I hope that answers the question somewhat.
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much. It's just really lovely to hear that this project is going on for such a long time. I felt like this is such a missing element within our curriculum, our school system, and we learn so much more effectively, I guess, more naturally, and those brain pathways are really sort of cemented in when we do something we enjoy and we're learning at the same time. So it sounds like it's a really flexible, naturally kind of, it's meandering its own way and evolving over time, which is exactly how it should be. So it sounds lovely. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Laura. And There's something I was going to pick up on there, but it's dropped again.
Let us know if it comes into mind.
Yeah, it's the supporting what's already going on. As a teacher, the last thing you need is something else to do. And there are so many great gardening projects. There are so many schools that garden, but it's so dependent on. It's usually dependent on a leading person or a leading parent council. And what we want to show is a way that you can just normalize it. I think that's the thing, is normalizing this. So it's inherent in the daily life at school. It's not something extra. It should be what education's based on. So that's our vision. That's our approach.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Laura. And does anybody have any other questions? There aren't more in the chat, but if anyone wants to raise their hand, then feel free to pose your questions. I've got a little one while people are thinking about it. The license to occupy, Laura, is something that I've not come across, and I did used to work as a community gardener in a school, so I know how useful that must be. Was that an easy process to get that?
It was made easier for us thanks to Edenbane Primary, because it already existed. So I believe that was the first one in the Highland Council. So I don't know what they had to go through, but the fact that one existed meant that it was fairly straightforward to us. I mean, we've been working closely with the council for the last, well, JJ's been working closely with them for about 2 years now. And obviously I've been on board for 18 months. And because this was going ahead, we were obviously using council land, we're on council land. There needed to be a way for this, the garden to be accessible. And so, it was an ongoing conversation for quite a while. And, that you have to go through the right channels, the legal team are involved, our solicitors are involved, just to make sure that everything's done properly. And it's, the understanding that out of school hours, we are responsible for that garden, so it is a big responsibility. But it's just a no-brainer. I think the approach that we've taken through this whole process is not, can we do this? It's how are we going to do this? And just finding the right people to have that conversation with, because there are right people, you just have to find them. And that's the thing, it's all about bringing people together with the same vision and finding how to do it, rather than if it's going to happen. It's going to happen. How do we do it? Because there's always a way. There's always a way.
That's great. That's great. Laura's popped in the chat that she'd love to get in touch and talk about coming to help, which is wonderful. Lynn's email, Lynn is on this call as well. Her email is in the kind of group of contacts and links that I put at the start, but I will put it up again as well, just in case that's sort of disappeared up at the top. And yeah, you can get in touch with Lynn. Does anybody else want to raise a question or give a comment to Laura? Feel free to pop your hand up or unmute. Vida, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Feel free to unmute. Go.
Yeah, Vida, but it's pretty close. I work in ASN school in Drummond in Inverness, and I am a gardening teacher, as I call myself. We have an area which we call the grow zone, and we are we had polytunnel for many years, but we had some successes and some sort of not so successful years, just depending, like somebody mentioned, it depends on individual who is running it. And it's very, very difficult to sustain. So my question is, I know you as a charity helping to create gardens and then possibly give guidance and so on, but because we are sort of trying to find our way, and our garden is quite small. But we have a polytunnel, we have a potting shed, and we have a couple of beds outside. So we are making our own compost, and so we've been doing things. But I was wondering if we could maybe get some advice or support from yourselves, or maybe even we could invite you to an assembly and inspire us. It's just somehow to make a connection and be inspired by yourselves, and just aim for something bigger. And
Absolutely. I think you're very, very welcome to come to North Keswick Primary and see what we're doing there. And I'd love to come and see your growing space at Drummond. The other thing that popped into my head, because we have to be really careful with our capacity right now. I'm the only teacher. We've got one project coordinator. So, but a school in Inverness that I used to work with, they partnered up with a local allotment group. And so I'm just wondering if there's any, if there are any local groups that you could partner up with, because that's a way to just, take the pressure off yourself to run it. Because that this is what happens with school gardens so often, is that you get them set up, you get the funding for a tunnel, and then it's dependent on 1 or 3 adults. And so, or that there's funding for a certain amount of time, and then it just kind of drops off. So partnering up with, I don't know if you have like a parent council.
Yeah, we do.
It's I would speak to them and see if the parent council would like some kind of regular involvement.
Okay.
And also local allotment groups. So just off the top of my head, I know where you are because I'm around the corner from Drummond. So I think it's Blackthorn allotments. They're up on home. They're, up the hill from the IRA, basically. I would approach them and see if they could give you a hand, because there's, I know that Downey Primary in Inverness, they've partnered up with the allotments just next door, next to the canal. So they, somebody might want to come from the allotments and actually work on a regular basis. So that's another way for doing it. But yes, please drop me an email and come and see the garden. And I'd love to see. I'd love to see what you're doing at Drummond. We're a bit limited on what support we can give in a really kind of immediate, tangible way, because we're really focused on this scoping study. But working in partnership is definitely the way forward.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Vida. And there's just one more question from Donna Grant. Donna, I don't know if you want to unmute and put your question forward.
Hi there. Yeah, I just had a quick question about funding. We're very much in the beginning stages of looking about how we can use our space. We've got a lovely space out at Dockyard Primary, but it's just ripe for a growing project. But it's being a very small school, so we're very limited in how we could do fundraising and such like. So are there any funding avenues we can go down in order to help facilitate that?
You are putting me on the spot to name funding avenues, but the Pebble Trust, have you looked at the Pebble Trust, which is a Black Isle group? I know that their focus is very much on climate change, and they offer grants up to £10,000. There definitely will be funding available, but writing grants and selecting grants is not something that I do on a daily basis. But Tom from Shieldig has put Food for Thought Education Scotland. Thank you, Tom.
I'd also jump in just to say that the Highlands and Islands Climate Hub have a fund finder that they update. So they're an organisation that's free to join as a member, and once you're a member, you have access to this fund finder, and that can be quite handy as well, Donna.
Brilliant, thank you.
Great. Well, I think we'll maybe move on, but I'll definitely say if another question pops up in your head, please do put it in the chat, and hopefully we can get to it at the end. But Laura, thank you so much. That was really, really wonderful, and lovely to see the things that you're getting up to. We're gonna move on now to our next speaker, and if you bear with me, I shall bring up the introduction that I have for her, because it's got lots of specifics. I can introduce her as a wonderful woman, Briege, but I need to have my notes if I'm going to get it right. Briege, you'll forgive me. I'd hate to introduce you wrong. Brilliant. Okay, Briege is the food and nutrition coordinator for the catering services in the Highland Council. So her responsibilities include creation of menus, nutritionally analysing menus for compliance to Scottish Government food in school standards, as well as managing all the special diet requirements for children with allergies and intolerances, medical and special needs, religious and ethical requirements in all settings. So she has her work cut out for her. But she also ensures that the standards of the Soil Association's Food for Life Served Here award are met to bronze standards for nurseries and primary schools in Highland. The wider catering team also deal with procurement of food, Scottish Government initiatives, including rollout of free school meals extension and the free breakfast programme. And Briege has been engaged with the Highland Good Food Partnership since our initial conference several years ago. And I'm very grateful to her, not only for all the help she gives us now and in years past, but also for her bringing her expertise to our discussion today, because it's definitely something that I've spoken with a lot of people who really aren't sure how to make that leap from, you know, having vegetables and fruit and how to get them in the kitchen and into the children officially. So I'm going to hand over to Briege, and again, if you have questions, pop them in the chat and we can call on you at the end. Briege, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Ellie. I feel a bit underqualified because being billed as an expert, and I don't feel I am an expert. I just have experience of working in the catering services and working with the schools in the Highland Council. And really the route to the kitchen is a very simple one for any of you who are growing food in your school gardens. And it really is just to make contact with your school cook, and I'll talk a wee bit more about it. But Ellie wanted me to give you a little bit of an overview of the Food for Life side of things, and also a little bit of an overview of the Scottish Government regulations. And then I've got a few pictures to show you of some practices that I know that are happening in schools. I don't get to hear of the many things that the cooks are doing, and a lot of them go under our radar. But I do have a little bit of information that I can share with you. So I'll share my screen first of all, if I can remember how to do this. Bear with me. So in the Highland Council, all of the primary schools and nurseries and partner centre nurseries are awarded the Bronze Food for Life standards, and this gives you a little bit of an idea of what that means, what the standards mean. And the main thing that we have to comply to is the 75% of the dishes are freshly prepared. Now that may, for any of you who have children at schools in Highland, you might look at the menu and think that you don't think that it looks like there's 75% of the meals freshly prepared, but the qualification for a meal to be freshly prepared is set by the Soil Association. And there are things like it's the quality of the meat that is in a sausage that allows it to be, and the quantity of meat in a sausage that allows it to be classified as a freshly prepared item. They are overviewing their guidelines at the moment, and there's going to be new ones set out in the spring of this year, where there will be a lot less processed foods. Ultra-processed foods are the main things that people are wanting to avoid. At the moment, we don't have any undesirable additives or colouring, or we have to keep to a certain standard for the Scottish Government anyway, in terms of nutrients of high fat and high salt and high sugar. That isn't what the Food for Life polices, but it's more the environmental impact and ensuring that we're using eggs that are free range, that we have higher welfare, animal welfare standards, and that we have no genetically modified items in our menus. And one of the main things that affects everybody here is the use of seasonal ingredients. Our main fruit and vegetable supplier are Swanson's, which is a community-owned company, and they obviously our problem in the Highlands and Islands is our geography, and being able to get a supplier that can supply all the schools, right from the schools in Inverness city centre down to Badenoch and Strathspey and right up to Durness is a problem for any of our companies that are willing to undertake that journey. We did used to have our supply from our meat supply from Munro's in Dingwall, and Munro's unfortunately decided that a few years ago that it wasn't cost effective for them for that distribution side of things. They were as upset as we were, but it just wasn't cost effective for them. We do still get Scottish meat, but that comes from our grocery and frozen produce supplier, which is Brakes in our case. And we do have to try to work really hard at keeping it a high standard for that supply. We do, through working with the Good Food Nation and the qualifications that will place on us in the coming year or 2 years, we would very much hope to be able to get a way into getting a type of meat supply that equates to what we had with Munro's, but that is something that procurement will have to deal with. Then this is available on our website. It just shows you an overview of the 14 nutritional standards that we have to meet for the Scottish Government. One of the main things to highlight here is the first one, fruit and vegetables. So we have to be able to provide a certain amount of portions of fruit and vegetables to make those available for children every meal, and at every point whenever there is food, there should be something fresh available for the children as well to choose. Our problem is actually getting the children to eat the fruit and vegetables, as I'm sure any parent on the call will relate to. It is very easy to prepare fruit and vegetables for children, but to actually make them want to eat it or to eat it is a challenge. And that's why growing their own food is such a way in for children to be able to understand that it's a fruit of their own hands, or a produce that they've had a say in how it's been grown, and the excitement that gives them makes them actually want to eat it. And we do have an example of a few school gardens and the kind of produce that they've produced. The way to get these into the school kitchens is really just to talk to school cooks and to let them know in advance, have a plan to let them know what they're growing, what would be suitable for them, and what they could use it in. You'll see the Cavilo Nero here. I always struggle with the pronunciation, but this cook who grows that has made that into kale chips for the pupils and they delight in it, which my son wouldn't eat kale if I was to try to lather it in ketchup or whatever. It's just it's incredible whenever you see the children who have had an involvement in growing these things and their delight in eating it. What we try to do is cooks who are using produce from grown in the garden in their usually it will be vegetables in soup, it will be fruit in the tray bakes that they're doing, or any other. I mean, if there's a problem with quantity and getting the quantity that you would need to be able to feed all of the children, so it is likely to be in soup, but you have to let the children know that what is in the dishes are things that they have grown. And one of the very best things that I saw was a lot of school gardens will grow a lot of herbs, and there was a school that I used to work with down in the Cairngorms who what they did was the school cook just cooked up a lot of potatoes, and the teacher involved just made different potato salads with different herbs for the children to try the different herbs and see what they liked best and why they liked it, etc. And it was just a way in to be able to use that extra flavouring. This is just a little example of one of the schools over in Skye, where the cook, who was called Annette, was experimenting with recipes because she was going to enter a competition, and she got the kids to have their input. And you can see there's a Gaelic medium in this school, but I thought the artwork was quite something. And let me just get myself out of sharing. So that's really a summary of the kind of things that we can do in the school kitchens. It's really difficult to get children into the kitchens, obviously. And one of the things I was going to say to you, Laura, is if there ever was an opportunity in the gardens to be able to cook on a fire outside, I guess that would have to be an older demographic of pupils that you would use, although my friend does it with nursery pupils quite successfully. And basically that's really the other guidelines, I guess, that I should say for using vegetables from the garden. It is basically, in terms of the health and safety, it's basically the same as we would do for any vegetable or any dirty vegetable that comes into the kitchen. The cook obviously has a separate cleaning area for dirty vegetables. They store it in the standard food safety guidelines, and they note in their daily diary where the produce came from, if it's coming from the garden. And sometimes cooks will note when they've put it into a meal, but they don't have to for any kind of regulations purposes. But having the notices up on the counters for the children to know that that's where the vegetable came for that dish on a particular day is all part of the learning and all part of the actually getting them to put the vegetables into their mouths. And I think that's all I have to say on this. Anybody else in the call wants to add onto it or ask any questions?
That would be wonderful. If anybody wants to raise their hand or put comments in the chat. That's brilliant, Briege. It's it's, as you say, getting kids to actually eat the vegetables that have to be provided in the school kitchen is a whole other ball game. But yeah, they're so much more likely to do it. As Laura said in the comments, they're 3 times more likely if they've actually had dealings with growing the veg. Does anyone have a question that they'd like to pose to Briege? Feel free to pop your hand up or put it in the chat. Oh, Laura, thank you. Go for it. Go for it. I'll not read that out. I'll let you pose your question.
Thank you. Yeah, me again. I'm super keen. Briege, I was just thinking, I see a lot of the struggles with children. Actually, I completely agree with them putting it in the mouth is the first hurdle, and it's often the biggest. I think a lot of children where we live, the thought of touching anything green or multicolored or raw, or having a different texture can sometimes just be very overwhelming for them. And my question was really, do you think that the reluctance to even try it is because there's such a distance between where the food comes from and then when it's prepared and put in front of them? There's not a lot of experience or information that's given to them. They don't handle the food, their fingers aren't in soil, they don't see it growing or ripening or how to harvest. So I just wonder whether it's I'm just on the phone. I just wonder whether is that gap that is frightening children, and if they spent more time with food from an early age to get the foundations right, that there wouldn't just be such a hesitance to even try. Like it would become a habit to just go with the flow and, oh, this is where our food comes from, this is what we do when we have it, this is how we eat it, this is how we prepare it. I work with children, really young, 2, 3 years old, 3 years old normally, getting them to handle sharp knives with supervision, getting them to try different foods, smell them, and have a look at where they're grown. And I think if you get it when they're young, it's not so much of a challenge. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I totally agree. And I think our food culture in Britain is really quite sad, because if anybody is ever on holiday in the continent, food markets are so much more visible and normal. and people will, kids going around the street shopping will see big markets in France and in Spain of fresh produce. It's not as clinical as it is in the UK, where it only comes from Tesco's and supermarkets, and that experience is all too normal for children. And there's a distance as well. It depends on what happens at home. There's an awful lot of children who just have never been exposed to steak pie, so they would never take it at school, or it's a lot of fast foods, ultra processed foods that are used a lot. And it is a question of not being normalized. But even people who do go to have the experience of using fresh food at home, children are not always accepting of it. And one of the main ways of making them be accepting of it is to have that longevity from start to finish, and the experience in the garden of what Laura has been speaking about. And I think, Laura, you had your hand up as well.
Well, Laura Dorrant, you just put a message in chat, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I said we didn't grow anything because, this is our first growing season, but we had rocket and spring onions and lettuce. So we did grow things. Sorry. we did grow things in the no dig beds, and I think every child in the school now knows what rocket is, and pretty much all of them have tried it, and some of them like it and some of them don't, but they know what rocket is. And it is just that simple. I think the thing with gardening is gardening really is about care. It's as soon as you grow something and you grow something and it's alive, you care about it. A child sows a seed, they're so excited, they watch it come to life and they care about it, and they've immediately can relate to it. And that's the disconnect we're talking about. I have another question, actually. I have a question for everyone. Is there anyone on this call that composts the food waste in their setting? So is there anyone at school who actually collects the food waste and composts it? Because I'd love to know how they manage this.
Yes, we do. It's Suleika. Sorry, I can't work out how to put my hand up.
Hi, Suleika. I know that you've been in touch with us before, so it's nice to hear your voice.
Yeah. So the question was about compost and how we do it. So we do it we do a lot of the gardening stuff through our eco committee. So each class has a compost bin, and the eco committee kind of collect it up and put it into our big compost at the garden. Recently, the older kids have decided that they need it. The younger kids, a lot of us have the snack inside before we go out to play. So then the compost bin is in the right place. But the older kids would like their compost bin outside because they're having their snack outside. Yeah, so that's how we do it, basically.
Great stuff. And Vida?
Yeah, in our school, we do it on a small scale. So what we have in the staff room, we have a little caddy. And at the end of each day, we take it out into our food compost bin. We layer the food compost with a layer of cardboard and then leaves, and then we put food compost again while food remains. And of course, like previous speaker was saying, our classes used to have caddies each class, but we are very inconsistent. But probably like any other school, there's issues with staffing, and there are more important things to do, and so sort of we don't manage to sustain and do it like every class, and not everybody is interested. But we do have a separate compost bin where we make compost using food from our school, and it's actually the best compost because we emptied one of the bins, and we already topped up our beds this winter, so it's really worthwhile making. Also, if I can maybe go back to the previous subject and just mention about how pupils are reluctant to eat some fruits and vegetable. In our environment, obviously, pupils with additional support needs, some of them will eat everything, others will not eat anything or very little. But what was interesting to observe last summer, spring and summer, was my first season when we were harvesting crops. The harvest obviously wasn't very good because spring was quite cold, but we had various produce, and it was interesting. We would have tasting sessions with different classes, and those pupils who don't have a chance maybe at home or where they live to see the vegetables, try them or even smell, they tried some of them. We had a success to various degrees. So some were willing to smell, others to touch and feel, and we were looking for words, those who could say words to describe. And we had some lovely moments where some pupils never tried any vegetables, and in our grow zone they tried 3 different ones in one day. So it's really exposing, I think, pupils and giving them a chance to see something that they might not seen before, and just give them a chance to try. And yeah, so like you said, some of them like vegetables, some of them don't, but they have a choice to really experience it. So it's worthwhile trying.
That's really good, Vida, because there's one of the other aspects of my work is the special diets, and in the last year, I would say there's been a huge increase in the requests for special diets for selective eaters and people who have autistic traits, etc. And one of the main things is that for those pupils is they don't eat any vegetables or anything fresh, and sometimes it has to be a brand specific fast food that they will eat, and that they have to start a journey to try to move towards something that's a little bit more what you and I would find acceptable. But we have to start where they are, and if I think it would accelerate that journey for them if they had the experience that you're talking about and that you're doing in Drummond. I have 2 things that I wanted to say again. There was a person, Kay, who had asked for about vermin. I'm also involved in an organisation called Incredible Edible in Inverness, and we had a community composting talk from a local expert whose name I don't know his name, but he was saying that because that was a question that was asked. It depends really on the content of your compost, because if you put eggshells in it, it will increase the chances of having vermin, and it having enough dry material in there to be able to have air for the temperature to be right to break down the organic matter, all contributes to not having vermin. And it's just, I haven't mastered it myself. There's a lot of local experts though that have, and I don't know if Laura, you're going to be doing composting, or if you are doing composting. The other thing I was going to say was, oh my goodness, it has left me. I'll have to go back to that because I can't remember what it was.
All right, come back to it, Briege, when you remember. I just wanted to point out with the composting that that's actually going to be the subject of the Highland Good Food Partnership's next podcast as well. So again, if you guys wanted to sign up as a member, you'll get a heads up when our next compost comes up. But there's some wonderful composting that happens in schools. I was involved with Taradale, and they've got a Rydan composter, so it's a in-vessel composter, so there's no trouble with vermin at all. There's no way for them to get in, and it's a wonderful thing to add in. And I think somebody was commenting about the big composter at the Botanic Gardens, and the story there is that was brought over. Partly a colleague of mine was working on it. It got brought over from Mull, I think I'm right in saying, because it wasn't being used over there, and they're going to try and get it up and running. So that's brilliant. There's some wonderful comments. I don't know if you've seen, Laura, in answer to your question about the composting. It's great to hear that people are are making use of excess produce and you know, using compost bins. That's wonderful. Did you want to make a comment on that?
Thank you. Yeah, this is great conversation. Just love talking about compost. We are going to start, and it actually came out of us because I host the Eco Warrior Kids. That's what they've called themselves at North Keswick, and it actually came out of a pupil council meeting. So the pupil council were concerned about the snacks that they saw a lot of children bringing in, just, you know, huge sort of family bags of crisps or just sweets as a snack. And it was the pupil council that took to the head teacher and said, we're really concerned about the standard of snacks and the sort of the lack of healthy snacks. And then also linked to that was the increased litter on the school grounds. So we had a change of janitor. And so for a while there was just sort of supply coming in, and you really noticed the difference in the litter on the school grounds. So the pupil council took that to the head teacher, and they're actually doing an awareness assembly on Friday. And the head teacher invited the Eco Warriors to just, you know, present a little bit at the end, focusing on the litter aspect. So we've really taken that as an opportunity to introduce the first kind of step towards composting. So we're going to have a couple of, you know, big plastic tubs with lids on, leave one outside sort of the main playtime door, and leave one to the entrance of the garden, so that any fruit snacks, obviously any fruit waste, is put into the bin. And also if anyone gets a snack from the canteen, it's just taken in a napkin. So the napkins and the food waste we want to collect in order to compost. So that's going to be started up this week. So yeah, we're starting. It's really great to hear about all the different experiences, and I'll listen out for that podcast. So thank you, everyone.
Wonderful. Breeze, you have your hand up. Did you want to comment on that?
No, I remembered what it was I was going to say. It was just about the growing season in Scotland, and obviously the harvesting happens mostly in the summertime, and how you get around that, Laura.
So our great plan is to have the community involved by the summer. So it's as simple as that. It's we'll have a team of people linked to the school, linked to the North Keswick community, who will be on site, and that's why we've got this license to occupy. If you're asking with regards to how the produce will then be used, we'll have to do we'll have to have a good think about that one, honestly. But I can see a lot of preserving going on as well. So I think there are already people in the community that will be involved in that and will know how to do that, so that it's not, I don't end up with, you know, three beds worth of vegetables preserving back at my house. But that's, you know, that's not such a bad thing. But yeah, that's something that we are aware of, and you know, we have to get the team of people before the summer. So
that's brilliant. Thank you, Laura. We are kind of drawing to the last 10 minutes. So I wonder if there's any other comments or questions. This is a real opportunity while we've got, I think there's just over 30 of us in the room. While we've got people here, if anybody's got any comments or questions, please do kind of raise your hand or just unmute yourself if you can't manage that.
Gillian McLennan has raised.
Oh, thank you. Please, Gillian, go for it.
Hi. I just wanted to say, like, I love this whole discussion. I'm a home economics teacher at Nairn Academy, and sometimes the terminology we use, it comes more to life when you see the children actually, even just out in the school. We have we collect fruit at the beginning, or we did at the beginning of the year, to make crumbles, and we get fruit from wherever we can locally to make sure that the lessons we're teaching on carbon footprint, food miles, everything sort of can come alive by saying you know, you got this in the garden here, or it was locally produced, versus a punnet of strawberries from supermarkets that have Mexico, and trying to get them to envisage that they've got something that's on their doorstep and contributing much better to the planet than having it sort of airlifted in. And I think my reason for coming, or rationale for coming on here, would to sort of be able to say to our department's great at supporting anything local as well. And if there is anyone, you know, we can, budgets are, I think Bridge said it, that budgets are very tight for cooking, and I know, but I think the local message has to come through as well as the budget. It can't all be about money and things. It has to be about in tandem with local is better, and children also as well. Sometimes, if I think the picture you put up earlier on there with the stems and the roots of the potato and the soil and everything, I had potatoes last week that were lovely and clean, and some children, I haven't seen, sadly, a homegrown potato covered in soil, and perhaps all they get to see is shop grown things. And it would just be good to be able to know in partnership who is involved with schools and who can or would like to be able to facilitate anything with school gardens, or even giving some kind of local produce that we can highlight. And my second point is I've also got a business in Inverness, a 9-bedroom guest house, and from a local perspective as well, we try and use, for the past 10 years, every single thing locally. But the sort of energy crisis has caused us not to be able to get a lot of things, because the fruit tunnels have not been able to be put on because of electricity. And so even though I think my main point is that from a teaching perspective and from a business perspective, we want to do this and to be able to use local and to be able to sort of get the sustainability message through. Sometimes it's not always as easy. So if there's pointers or partnerships or availability to work together, then that's my sort of main priority of being here, to be able to reach out from both these aspects and see what's there. Because the last thing I want to be doing is using things from miles and miles away when it's on the doorstep. However, I am very aware that sometimes the message back is it's very expensive to buy locally and it's cheaper to buy from supermarkets, and I'd like that message to be very much reversed. It should be better to be able to buy locally and stop the import of so many highly miled or highly travelled foods. So I'm happy to put my email address in if anyone wants to keep in touch. And great talks as well. Thank you very much.
Can I just hop in, Gillian? Have you seen the Highland Good Food Partnership map on their website? Because
yeah, I've looked at a lot of things locally, local consortiums, local communities, I think, in there. And is it Mandy? I've spoken to the Way In. I've spoken to people that do things locally that we could sort of partner up with. So I just need to spend more time, Laura. It's the time aspect as well. We're a small department, and it's trying to get the time to make sure that we sort of can educate the children to the best of what we're able to deliver within the curriculum, but really shoehorn in the local message.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're doing all that you can, and that's all that all of us can do. But as you said, I hear you on capacity. You know, to do things properly, it takes a lot of effort, and that's not the way it should be.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thanks.
Oh no, thank you, Gillian, for your comment. Like it's good to hear. If you want to put your email address in the chat, to be accessible by everybody who's here. You're very welcome. And yeah, if anyone else is looking for a particular person or service or network, then yeah, the chat is a good place to be putting in. There's some chat about from Briege about chatting with cooks. And I also just wanted to ask Briege just briefly, you know, I know we have some, you know, really amazing open-minded cooks in our schools who are just fab, but I'm also aware that some may feel uncomfortable about the prospect of being handed a load of dirty stuff from a school garden. I wondered if you had a school with a cook who really wasn't sure about moving forward towards this, what would be your advice? You know, would it be for them to contact their kind of line manager? Like, where could a cook reach for support if they really weren't sure how to deal with produce coming in?
There's various different people, their area supervisor, their area officer, myself, and the food safety officer, Patrick. They'll know all our names, all the cooks. The problem is there's turnovers of cooks, and sometimes cooks will come into a job and they haven't been to one of our cooks training days. It's very difficult for us to get round all of the new staff to give them one-to-one training. Right on point, but we do try and we do manage it most of the time. But they can contact any of their line managers, myself, or the food safety officer.
Brilliant, that's lovely, great. Well,
also say, sorry, Ellie, I should also say it might be worth like saying to the cook in advance that you're going to be bringing it in rather than just arrive with it.
Yes, I think that's a good tip. Well, if there isn't any other questions going around, then what I'd like us to do just in the last 5 minutes is I'd like to extend my thanks to Laura and to Briege. Like, this has been a really amazing evening. I've loved hearing more details about the work that you do, and thank you to everybody for being here and for the thoughtful questions. It's been brilliant. I have put in the chat the email addresses that you guys can make use of. There's also the link to become a member with the Highland Good Food Partnership. And I'd also like to just plug the survey again that Go Flourish are doing, because this work that they're doing, kind of gathering evidence, could be so important in actually shifting things politically and, you know, in terms of allocating resource in the future and things like that. So it would be really wonderful if you guys could fill out that survey. And I know how busy life is, so what I would really strongly suggest, if at all possible, is that you can leave us in a minute, and before you get on with the rest of your evening, if you could just spend 2 minutes filling out the survey. It's just a few questions. Is there anything that you want to add to that, Laura, in terms of the survey, or have I bigged it up enough?
Thanks, Ellie, you've done really well. I think the best thing to do is just hop on. They're really quite straightforward questions. There's just I think there's about 5, but if you would like to have a more in-depth chat with us, you know, if you feel like you've actually got more to say, then also do please get in touch with us. If you go right to the top of the chat, there's the Lynn, our project coordinator, Lynn, her email's there, and also the survey link, and just, yeah, the evidence here is key, because we are pushing for policy change in practice, change in resources allocation. You know, we're focusing on our immediate schools, but we want every school to have this. So we need that evidence. And Cara's got her hand up.
Yes, Cara, you want to go ahead?
Hi, thanks very much. That was really inspiring. Laura, that was lovely to hear from you and hear how great the project is going as well. I've been out to see what you do at North Keswick before, and you were just kind of getting started in the garden. So it's great to hear how you're getting on. I'm really interested to hear how we can use food that's produced in the school, in the kitchen as well, Briege. I was just wondering, in schools we have to do like enterprise projects and things, and I was just wondering if there was any scope for the children selling the produce that they make and the preserves and things for an enterprise project, if you had thought about that for the future, and if so, if you had any guidelines on how it should be done or if it can be done. I'm not sure, but I was just thinking of linking with the community again, you know, selling out to the local community. I don't know if it's possible or not. Yeah, I was just wondering if you had any advice. Thanks.
Hi, Cara. It's lovely to have you on this call. It's something that we would like to do. How it works, no idea yet. Haven't got there. That's the short answer. So if you find out, you let us know, and if I find out, I'll let you know. Do you have anything on that, Ellie?
Only from personal experience, that I know that our school have got a hive of bees, and there was chat about whether we could sell the honey, and they came across, I don't know the details, but they found that they didn't think that they could. They thought that there were too many obstacles in place for them at that time to kind of get around. But it is a very, very interesting question, because, you know, those links between the school garden and the community are just vital, and, like, you know, having that exchange is really important. The one thing I do know is that a school down south who produces quite a lot of compost, that they can't use all of it through their kind of in-vessel composter, they found that they weren't able to sell it, but they were able to work out a kind of compost club that had a membership fee, and in that way people, so there are ways around various things. I don't know if anybody else has any information on whether produce can be sold from a school. Feel free to unmute and jump in. No. Well, maybe we'll have to come back with some more information at some point. Brilliant. Oh, well, I can't thank you enough. We are on 8 o'clock, so I'm going to let people get on with their evenings, but please, if you could just spend a few minutes filling out that survey, that would be wonderful. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the meeting open, just so people can still access the chat if they're struggling with links, or there's something that they want to kind of access, email addresses and things like that. So I'm just going to keep the meeting open for another 10 minutes, but this is the end of the event. So thanks again, Briege and Laura, and thank you to all of you guys. Do stay in touch and let us know how you're getting on.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.